It's that time of week again, folks. Oh yes, that time where we all take about 10 minutes of our precious, fleeting time on this planet to discuss the goings-on of a man in a bat suit that sometimes forgets what side of his pants the underwear goes on. Because if there's any hero that people can't seem to get enough of, it's the caped crusader himself, Batman. Having a storied past that is only rivaled by his much less depressing best friend, well, most of the time he's less depressing. Batman's stories are a dime a dozen, but there are a select few that rise far above the rest to find themselves on that most coveted spot on the internet, a top 10 list. My name is Jacob, and this is my top 10 Batman comic stories of all time. Number 10, Batman Reborn. Now, it may seem a little strange to start this list off with a Batman story that doesn't feature, well, Batman. But that's exactly what makes this particular tale so interesting. Seeing Dick Grayson don the cape and cowl during Bruce's death felt like a natural progression for the character. And while that alone would be enough for an amazing story, he's also paired alongside Bruce's murdery son Damian as the new Robin to truly flip the classic Batman and Robin dynamic on its head. Grant Morrison does a fantastic job of showing Dick Grayson's struggle with the weight of the Batman mantle. All of this culminating in a wonderful heart-to-heart between him and Alfred. Just great. Number 9, Batman Universe. If you had told me before reading it that Batman Universe would make its way on my top 10 Batman stories of all time list, I would have laughed in your face. But now I'm just laughing at how awesome and campy this book is. I mean, this is a comic where Batman and Green Lantern get sent back into the Wild West to fight with Jonah Hex against ninjas with laser swords. And that's barely halfway through the story. Not to mention that Nick Darrington may be one of my new favorite artists working today. Far too often Batman gets lumped into that grumpy guy who doesn't work well with others stereotype, but this one kicks that stupid idea in the jewels. You know what Batman does when he finds his way back to the Batcave? He calls Green Lantern to make sure he's not worried about him still being stuck. That's refreshing. In fact, that's a perfect word for this entire book. A refreshing take on the Batman character. Can we please get a sequel to this thing? Number 8, Under the Red Hood. The death of Jason Todd is one of the most interesting events in the history of comics. Mostly because it was actually not the Joker, but the bloodthirsty readers who condemned this poor underage crime fighter to his grim fate. After this, Jason joined a list of characters that would never be resurrected. The Waynes, Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, and of course himself. But when a mysterious villain appears, Batman is forced to come to terms with the notion that maybe recruiting children to fight literal mass murderers isn't such a great idea. In all seriousness, this story is one of Batman's most iconic. My only big gripes are that I seriously don't like the characterization of Mr. Freeze, and the ending falls just a tiny bit flat for me. Number 7. A Lonely Place of Dying. Following Jason Todd's death, Batman began to take on a much more edgy and violent nature. This leads none other than Tim Drake to take it upon himself to prove to the Dark Knight that Batman needs a Robin. I may be a little biased because Tim Drake is my favorite DC character, but I truly love this story. Seeing Tim piece together Batman and Nightwing's secret identity was a real treat, and watching him don the Robin suit for the first time was truly iconic. Even though he doesn't seem to be wearing pants. FBI, open up! Number 6, Year One. Batman Year One is a perfect origin story for the Caped Crusader. But more than that, it's also a perfect origin story for Commissioner Gordon as well. This book follows both men as their mettle is put to the test in the flames of Gotham City. In fact, I would go as far as to call this story the origin of Batman and Gordon's friendship more than anything. Number 5, The Killing Joke. Batman has an incredible set of villains. Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, the Riddler, Condiment King, the Carpenter, the massive blow to his reputation dealt by the movie Batman and Robin.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman.
But none of them have grown to popularity quite like the Joker. This comic aims to do the impossible by giving a satisfying origin story for the Clown Prince of Crime, and it truly succeeds in that regard. It also contains what is possibly the greatest confrontation between Batman and the Joker. with an ambiguous ending that fans still debate to this very day. The Killing Joke is a book that will worm its way into your mind and stay there if you aren't careful. Number 4. Batman Earth 1. Batman Earth 1 shows Batman in a way that we rarely ever see him. Inexperienced, deeply flawed, and refreshingly human. Yes, this version of Bruce Wayne isn't a nearly superhuman force of nature, but rather a young, headstrong vigilante with a thirst for vengeance. Taking place in an alternate reality truly frees up this comic to take risks and twist the tropes that Batman has been founded on for decades. But most importantly, it doesn't disrespect the core of the character, or make him appear weak or foolish. Instead, we get to see this Batman start from the bottom and grow into the hero that Gotham deserves. Number 3. The Court of Owls. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's first volume of their New 52 Batman run is perhaps the most celebrated story that The Dark Knight has had this decade, and it's for a very good reason. The story follows Batman as he investigates a string of murders that seem to be the work of a local Gotham legend, the Court of Owls. The reader is brought along for an unforgettable ride as the Dark Knight begins to fall deeper and deeper into the inescapable grip of this terrifying group. One part of the story even had the reader having to physically spin the comic in circles to read the panels as Batman is slowly driven mad. In the end, we are left to see if the legendary Batman is a match for the mythological Court of Owls. Number 2. The Dark Knight Returns. Was there anyone who thought this wouldn't make the list? I mean, The Dark Knight Returns is basically an awesome Batman moments dispenser. Whether it be his battle with Superman, his final confrontation with the Joker, or my personal favorite, his brawl with the mutant leader in a mud pit. No book captures the essence of the dark, unrelenting drive of the Batman quite like this one does. Honorable mentions. Before we get to my number 1 pick, these are the Bat books that just barely missed the list. The Long Halloween, Nightfall, Death in the Family, Black Mirror, Flashpoint Batman, Son of the Demon, and I'm also going to cheat a little bit and include an episode of the animated series with Heart of Ice. But now, we have the moment you've all been waiting for. Number 1. Hush. Hush is basically the equivalent of a Batman's greatest hit album. It's got awesome action, fantastic character moments, and at its core, it's a great mystery. It also contains, quite possibly, the greatest kiss in the history of comics. But that's not all it offers. It's got heart, it's got humor, it's got Nightwing, it's got the hands-down best Batman vs. Superman showdown. If you want the most bang for your buck, Hush is the best Batman story because it packs in more than any other Batman story before or after it. So what do you think of the list? Leave your favorite Batman story in the comments below and be sure and subscribe. I'm Jacob, and until a shadowed gunman leaves me crying alone in an alley swearing vengeance, you can find me right here at Nemesis Comix.
Hey there, friends, foes, and all those in between. If you guys want to see more content from us, make sure you subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and if you have any comments or questions that you really want to know, leave them down below, and we'll see you guys next time.